Hi friends, it's me. It's time for another one of these shows. This was supposed to be specifically about Neckbeard history, but it's devolving into just whatever, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't care. I like it, and I'm not going to change the name, mainly because I really like the title card, and I'm proud of that. I made it myself. So, I have two comments here that are actually interesting and kind of go together. So I'm going to read both of these and kind of, talk about this. Let's start with Panda Gold said, Moonhorse, what would have to happen for you to actually be a Neckbeard? You seem too cleanly to do so, but I know you've changed a lot over the years. Which is a very good question, and there's also kind of the other one I was talking about, is Dernord says, I have a question that I'd really like to know more about. How did the Neckbeard group influence your school life / general popularity, if at all? Did other people ever talk to you about them, or did situations ever come up specifically because you were sort of close to them? These things do kind of actually go together. Interestingly enough, but they do. So, let's start with the first one. For me to have actually been more of a Neckbeard, I mean, the biggest thing you have to remember is when I fell in with those groups, it was because of two very important factors. One was that I didn't really know anybody. I was kind of an outcast. I only had maybe one or two friends, and I had some others, but we didn't share any classes and didn't really see each other. So it was kind of I guess, that's a thing, but we only got to hang out a little bit. And the ones I saw the most, again, not a huge amount either. And the other one is, ever since I was really young, due to some issues with, family stuff and how I was raised, I always had really, really low self-esteem. I basically found out that I had had depression since, I don't know, maybe I was 14, 13 even. And a lot of it was, oh, you're just a teenager. It's nah, it's actually pretty fucking bad. And it kind of continued for a really long time. But, yeah, my really negative self-esteem didn't help that either. So when this kind of stuff came along, whenever I started, running into people like this, I was just on one hand, they seem to know what they're doing, and on the other hand, what's the worst that could happen? Nobody likes me anyway. So, yeah, depression's a bitch, by the way. What would have happened for me to become a Neckbeard would have been if I didn't have, this kind of desire for going my own way. Even through depression, I've always kind of had that. I've always had this, well, okay, it's not going to work like this, or it's not going to work like that, so I'll just do it my way, and, then it'll work. Or I hope it'll work. A lot of that has to do with, personally anyway, I think, has to do with the fact that I'm dyslexic. And I was diagnosed when I was I don't know, 6, 7, maybe 8. I can't even remember, it's been so long ago. But the biggest thing I learned about being dyslexic is you can learn things, but it's going to take longer, and sometimes you have to figure your own way around it. And that's a big deal for me. Shit, that's why this community exists. It's because, I couldn't find any kind of good community for me. I didn't fit in anywhere, so I was well, fuck it, I'll make my own. And I did. So, that's kind of how that whole thing worked. It's just that. That is where, a lot of that came from. But if I didn't have that, if I didn't kind of have that rebellious attitude that kind of pushed back against people telling me what to do, then I think I would have ended up just like L or K or somebody like that. Well, more K, because K actually does bathe regularly. Not so much like L or Mu. So, that's the other part, is I actually despise not being able to... I shower every day. Every single day. I have to. I can't stand it otherwise. I cannot stand getting up in the morning and not being able to, that's how I start my day. You know, like, that doesn't matter, you know, if I wake up at 6 in the morning or 6 in the evening. Not that I wake up at 6 in the evening, but you get my point. That's how it's going to start, no matter what. The only time I've ever missed something like that is if I'm really sick or I have no other options. But yeah, no, I can't do that. I can't not be clean. It's disgusting, and I don't want that. And that's always been a problem. Like, I've always hated that. But yeah, that was a thing. So I can't really say that I would have fallen heavily into the whole neckbeard thing. And also it has to do with, like, how you perceive certain things. Anime is the big one, and I kind of said this when talking about this in in a previous episode, is anime is the big one. Anime is there's really, when it comes to, like, certain ones, there's really two different crowds that kind of get drawn into it. And I used Evangelion as a jumping off point for this a lot, because while it exists in several others, this is one that is very much like, it's, you know, you have that divide right there in the forefront. There's either the people who are there for the weirdly sexual things that sometimes the fan community makes, or there's people there for the giant monster fights. I'm here for the giant monster fights. Also, when we're talking about favorite female characters in Evangelion, my favorite still has to be, especially if we're talking about just the anime, Unit 1, because she is a large purple woman who don't need no man, and I appreciate that. So, she also has great life goals. Scream, throw things, eat stuff, and destroy things. I can be down with that. I like that. Let's do that. Let's get feral and break shit. You know, how you do. So... yeah, it's very much a thing in neckbeard communities that a lot of them are weirdly sexual. There's a lot of, like, aggressively heterosexual stuff, and I just, especially knowing them was around, you know, around the time that I started discovering other things about myself, such as perhaps I don't just think, you know, girls are attractive. Perhaps I also sometimes think boys are attractive. And that's a thing. And yeah, that was not a thing in the neckbeard groups. That they were all very straight. Weirdly so, if I'm being completely honest. It was a little weird. So yeah, that was another part that kind of pushed me away from that. As for the other point, though, as we kind of move into the other point, this is an interesting one. Did this affect my school life or general popularity? Well, as I said before, I only had like 5 friends. Nobody really talked to me. I wasn't one of those people specifically who's just like, oh, you know, oh, did you get bullied a lot? It's like, no, it was kind of like I didn't exist. I was very invisible, which I guess is okay. I was right around high school, you know, junior high and high school is when I realized that the issues I was having with depression were actually coming out more open, more like they were becoming more to the forefront, I guess is a good way to put it. And so it kind of feels like certain things when it comes to school were just kind of a haze. And that still kind of persists to this day. Like, I can imagine the layout of the 2 high schools I went to. I can't tell you anything about what I did there. I know I had friends, I know we talked about stuff, but I don't remember any of that. Because all of my good memories are either after or when I wasn't at school, like when we were out, you know, somewhere else. All of my good memories with, like, Bubs, for example, do not involve school. I know we went to the same school, and, like, I can prove that, you know, like, I know that, and he'd say the same thing, but, like, I don't remember, I don't have any, like, you know, oh, high school, the memories, like, no, it sucked. It was pretty awful. I didn't really know a lot of people. Nobody really talked to me, you know, aside from my very small group of friends. I didn't hear a lot about them per se, like from other people, but I did hear more about them after school. Because when I was in school, everything was very, it was very cliquish. I don't know if it's still that way today, because I'm not a fucking high schooler, but at the time, it was like you just don't associate with someone who's not in your particular group. You're supposed to shun them, which is stupid, but okay. And I didn't really hear anything like that, but it wasn't until I got out of school that I would talk to people who actually did know them, and they would be like, oh my god, yeah, like, I remember this, and I remember that, and it was just like, why the fuck didn't you say anything at the time? But yeah, like, no, I actually did hear from these people later. Later, I would hear all these stories, and like, oh, I remember when this one did this, or I remember when this one did that. And that was like a whole thing, but it didn't happen in school. I will say, when it comes to things in school, when it comes to like my time in high school specifically, the things I remember the most about that were we would have not so much the Neckbeard guys, but mostly like Bubs and another friend of ours. I really need to ask him what euphemistic name I could give him, because I really don't want to say his actual name, because I think that would be kind of rude. But we would hang out a lot, and we would play like weird video games and do all kinds of crazy shit and go on like weird adventures and stuff like that. But I remember hanging out with them the most. I remember going places, and there was this... In the town we lived in, well, city, they had a Walmart, and then they opened a super Walmart literally right next door, and just abandoned the old Walmart building. And it was just there, so it was just like this huge abandoned building. And any other time, and I don't, this is basically a good snapshot into how we were. Any other time you would expect, like, oh, this kid's got to go to the store. Well, you'll just walk to the store or whatever and get your things, and then you come back. And it's like, we may or may not have thrown rocks at the old dead light bulbs and broken a bunch of them. Yeah, we were bad kids. We broke shit. It was kind of funny. And yeah, like, we would get into shit, and I remember that a lot. I also remember that was around the time that I remember this too. I remember that was around the time that I got like a part-time summer job with the city, and I hated it. I hated it so much. But it wasn't the job itself. Doing the work, like the manual labor or whatever, was just whatever, because, a couple years later I would go on to do construction for a while. But like, that wasn't the problem. It was the people I worked with were just, like, the fucking worst. Like, it was really obvious that some of the older guys who were working there were, like, either the manager's kids or friends of the manager's kids, because they didn't do shit. There was, like, this little golf cart thing. It was like a little gas-powered golf cart. I think it was, like, a Gator. I don't even know what the hell it was. But... yeah, they would just cruise around in that all day. Like, they would just fuck around until, like, sometime in the afternoon, and then they would just go, and they got paid. Meanwhile, like, the lower, bottom of the barrel guys like myself were doing all the fucking work. And a lot of times, like, you really got the impression that management didn't actually have a plan for things to get done. They just had us do stuff sometimes because if they didn't, they would get in trouble or something. Because, like, at one point we had to, like, repaint all this shit that was, like, already painted. Like, it was still good, and they just had us do it over. I'll never forget this. They had, like, 4 or 5, like, baseball fields in this one park. And they were like, we have to repaint all the dugouts were, like, these little wooden boxes. They weren't actually dugouts. They didn't go underground or anything. But they were just, like, these kind of, like, wooden frames or, like, 3-sided things. And they had us paint them all the same color. Like, they were all intentionally painted different colors. Like, Field 1 was red, Field 2 was blue. And it was done like that intentionally so that like the you know, the softball teams could be like, oh, we're gonna be on green field today, or we're gonna go to yellow field, so you could see it from a distance to be like, that's the one. And they had us repaint them all white, and then 2 weeks later we had to paint them all back again. So it was stupid. It was the worst fucking job, but I made enough money doing that to buy a PS2. And I had to walk to the store to buy the PS2 because I didn't have, like, I was, like, you know, I was a kid. I didn't have a vehicle. So I walked, you know, across one parking lot and another, and then a third to get all the way to Walmart, because we lived way the fuck away from there. I bought the PS2, and then I carried it home. And, you know, you don't really realize how heavy a PS2 is until you have to carry it for, like, 700 feet in a plastic bag. Or however fucking long it was. It was longer than that. It wasn't 700. What the fuck am I talking about? Did I mention dyscalculia is also a thing I have? Because it is, and I'm not good with distances. It was a long fucking way. I was just like, this sucks. But I didn't have any PS2 games. I only had PS1 games. And, you know, it's backwards compatible. So I was able to play PS1 games on it for a while. And I had a choice around that time, because I had one. I was going to go get a PS2 game. I was going to get my first PS2 game was Twisted Metal Black. And I was going to get it that week, because I had enough, you know, savings that I was just like, I can do this. But then I saw that they had released a second installment of my favorite weird niche fighting game. And some of you may know this, and some of you may not, and I promise you, whatever fighting game you're thinking of, it's not that. Because it's... I'll be honest, it's the only fighting game I'm good at. And it was made for the PS1, and it was made like Street Fighter, and it's called Gundam Battle Assault 2, and it's literally just like a giant robot Street Fighter game. It's Gundam Street Fighter. That's about it. And the second one is they just threw a whole bunch of fucking different universes together. It's like, here's your G Gundam, here's your Gundam Wing, here's your original mobile suit, and they just threw everything together. And they were just like, yeah, now, you know, fucking fight. I loved the absolute fuck out of that game. I still own a copy. It's literally the only fighting game I'm good at. I suck at every other one. Never been good at them. Never. That's the one I'm good at. And if that sounds vaguely familiar, I know we're like way off topic, but this sounds vaguely familiar. It's because if you ever watched, there's an episode, it's a classic episode of Game Grumps where they play a fighting game, and it's the meme like, oh hey, Big Zam. That's what that comes from. It's that game. And I'll never forget this too. I would watch that because I just started getting into Game Grumps when I saw that. And I was just like, oh shit, I have that game. And I remember, it was the only time, because I really liked, you know, I really liked them, but it was the only time I ever immediately thought of, like, trash talk for Aaron, because he was like, you can't beat Big Zam with a ball, and I was like, if you're not a bitch, you can. Just like, yeah, I fucking can, and have. What about it? I'm the greatest fucking Gundam pilot who ever lived. Fuck all y'all, let's go. I absolutely do love that game, but that was one of the games I used to play all the time as a kid, too. That was the fighting game. You guys, you might know this. Some of you might know this. You ever had that one game that either you or, like, a friend, and it had, like, a multiplayer thing, but, like, either you or one of your friends was so fucking good at that nobody wanted to play it against them because they were unnaturally good at it? That was me in Gundam Battle Assault 2. It was one of the only games I'm, like, really, really good at, and just nobody fucking plays it with me. I haven't played it in so long, and it's so much fun. But, yeah, like, that's, oh my god, that is a, that's a thing. It's, like, the main thing that, like, pushed me away, going way back to the topic of, like, neckbeards and getting out of that, but the main thing that pushed me super far away from that was I just could not fall into this idea of, like, you know, obsessing over certain things to the weird sexual way that they do. I obsess over a lot of things. There's stuff I really fucking like, but I'm not, you know, like there's a limit. Like, there's a fucking... You gotta stop. The whole hardcore waifu thing, I never really got that. Some of the neckbeards I knew definitely had that. Kay had several. I remember that. And yeah, like, I couldn't get behind some of that stuff, and there was just like a huge... That was one of the things like myself and Bubs have in common, is like, despite the fact that, like, you know, we are who we are, we're very much like kind of, I don't know, not fully fitting in. Like, when we were in our 20s, really getting to the point that you can express yourself fully, you know, like your sexuality, gender identity, all that kind of stuff is now like, you know, hey, I can actually talk about it because I'm an adult and I'm not afraid to talk about these things, and I'm not constantly worried about fitting in or any of that shit. I can just be me. That was one of the things that, like, we had that conversation, was like, we both, you know, just absolutely adore the LGBT community. It's wonderful, it truly is, and they're all wonderful people, but like, a lot of what was around us locally when it came to that was just like the idea of, you know, there's a lot of like dance clubs and technotronic and that kind of stuff, and it's like, but we're both like punk metalheads. Like, that's kind of our thing. It's like, you know, I am the same guy who it's just like, yeah, I have a rainbow patch on one side of my jacket, and then the other one, I have another one that just says, fuck your government bullshit, you know? Because it's like, yeah, I'm that guy, because I just don't fucking care. And it's like, that doesn't really fit in. It's not, you know, we weren't really meshing, and so I think that's why we all kind of, the group we have kind of clung to each other so much, is because we mesh with each other, and we're down with each other, and we like that. And it didn't really start becoming more open and specific until much later. But yeah, no, that was definitely not a thing you were supposed to do in like the neckbeard groups. Like, you were not allowed to be gay, because that's gay, bro, that's gay. And it was, you know, the early 2000s where they would use gay as an insult, because looking back on some of the stuff from them, like from the late 90s, early 2000s, and the way they talk about things, is just like, it's so fucking stupid. It's just like, wow, no wonder people, it's not, at this point, it's not even insulting if somebody is like, oh, that's bad, and they call it, oh, that's gay. It's just like, literally the only thought I have is like, are you like 12? Like, for real? Did you just honestly say that with your human mouth? What's it like to own a time machine? Like, for fuck's sake, man. Like, it just doesn't work. It's so fucking dated that I'm just like, holy shit. Really? Do you also like Limp Bizkit? Do you want to keep rolling? Are you gonna tell me about those awesome LPs? Like, for fuck's sake, do you know where I can find CD long boxes? I bet you do! Like, holy shit. It really was just like... Things do not age well, and that was one of them. Shit aged like fucking milk. So... yeah, that was a thing in the neckbeard communities we were in, too. They totally fucking talked like that. And some of them still do. They're still, like, obsessed with being alpha male chads and all this other shit. And it's like... Okay. I'm gonna say a few things out loud. I just want to give you an example, because I've had someone say this kind of shit to me. And I just want to say these things out loud. And I know your response. If it's like mine, I have to say this. So... it's just a few disconnected words. So... the Chad, the Alpha, Red Pill, Blue Pill, and Cuck. Did you cringe? Holy shit, it's worse when someone says it out loud, isn't it? It's so fucking much worse when someone is actually saying those words to your face. I fucking get that, because somebody did that shit to me not too long ago, and I was just like, oh my god, you're not actually talking like those. You fucking can't. You fucking can't. Like, I'm done. That's it. I know that someone has to. I know that this language exists, but to hear someone literally say it out loud fucking sets me off. I'm just like, I can't even. You're not a real person. You can't be doing this. Holy shit. But yes, like, the neckbeards we knew actually were those guys, the kind of people who would read pickup artist books and try to, like, mac on chicks, bro, and shit like that. Like, they really, really wanted to be super tough guys, except that they were, like, 340 pounds and miladied a lot, so you can't see, but I did the tip, too. I do it every time I say it. It's muscle memory, shut up. But yeah, like, that's very much the kind of group that we were talking about. They would go from, like, weebing out over anime, talking about waifus, and then straight into, like, trying to be, like, the toughest manly men. And it's just like, I'm not finding a thread here. I'm so fucking lost that I don't even have a trail of breadcrumbs to get home at this point. Hansel, we're fucking lost. Hansel, we're gonna meet the witch. Hansel, don't eat the fucking house, bro. Holy shit. So yeah, that's my why I'm not a neckbeard. That went a whole bunch of places, didn't it? I don't think I even explained anything properly. I'm sorry. But it was fucking weird. It was so fucking weird. And again, do I hear stories about them years later? Yes. From some people. I'll run into people if I go back to Thibodeau or something like that, and every now and then I'll meet somebody who I went to school with, and they'll ask me about someone, and I'll be like, oh no, I haven't heard from them forever. And it's like, oh, did you know that they did this? And I was like, well, fucking what, really? No shit, really? So yeah, it's I don't have any specific examples, which is the reason why I'm saying it like that. I really don't. I do have some stories about other people, but I'm kind of holding off on some until I can get some guest stars, because this show will have guest stars in the future. I'm working on that. I'm doing my best to make that shit happen. So if this has been enjoyable to you, and I hope it is, a lot of this is going to go neckbeard territory. A lot of it's probably just going to be rambling nonsense, as you have seen, because it's me. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, do the YouTube thing at the like, comment, subscribe. It does something. I don't know. I don't understand YouTube. I just work here. And even then, not well. I don't work well here. I'm just here. But if you really want to be, like, super helpful, make sure you check out my my merch store and my Ko-Fi page. Those are links down in the description. It's down there. Every time I say that, I point as if I'm actually pointing to it. You can't see that. It's another reason I don't have face cam, is because I make a lot of stupid gestures. You don't need to see that. It's fine. I love you all so very, very much, and I will see you in the next one of these. I'd say it's a video, but it's not. It's more like a podcast, isn't it? It's just a weird 30 minutes of fucking nonsense. I should have called that show this. 30 minutes of fucking nonsense with Moonhorse. I almost did, but you can't say fuck on YouTube in the title anymore. You get in trouble for that. I really thought about it. I'm not kidding. I actually did think about that. But I'd get in trouble, so I didn't do it. Anyway, I love you all, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.